I walked into the office on Friday morning expecting to receive my promotion announcement. I had been the top regional sales manager for 3 consecutive years, consistently exceeding targets by 30%. My boss, Richard Mallory, had told me 2 weeks ago that the senior director position was mine. But when I arrived, I saw Heather Drake standing in what should be my new corner office, smirking. Richard stood behind her, adjusting his shirt collar. She looked directly at me and said, "I'm moving into your office Monday." My world stopped. I stood frozen in the hallway outside that corner office, my briefcase heavy in my hand, unable to process what I had just witnessed. 5 years I had spent at Westfield Financial Corporation building my reputation from the ground up. I had sacrificed weekends with my family. I had missed my nephew's graduation, my best friend's wedding, countless birthdays and holidays. All because I believed that hard work and results mattered. All because Richard Mallory himself had looked me in the eye and promised me this promotion. My mind raced back to that conversation 2 weeks ago. I had been in Richard's office, presenting the quarterly results. My team had closed the Morrison account, worth $1.2 million annually. Richard had stood up from behind his desk, walked around, and shaken my hand. "Jennifer," he had said, his voice warm and congratulatory. "You've earned this. The senior director position is yours. I'm sending the paperwork to corporate next week. Congratulations." I had believed him. Why wouldn't I? I had the numbers. I had the track record. I had built relationships with clients that brought in 40% of our regional revenue. My performance reviews were flawless. My team loved working with me. I mentored junior staff members. I did everything right. But apparently, none of that mattered. I forced my feet to move, walking down the hallway to my current office. It felt smaller now, cramped, like a cage. I set my briefcase down on my desk and sat in my chair, trying to maintain some semblance of composure. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against the cool surface of the desk, willing them to steady. Laura, my assistant, knocked softly and entered. She was holding a greeting card with gold lettering on the front. "I got this for you yesterday," she said, her voice bright with excitement. "I wanted to give it to you before the official announcement. But," her voice trailed off as she looked at my face. "Jennifer? What's wrong?" I couldn't speak. I just shook my head. Laura set the card down on my desk. Through the cellophane window, I could see the words "Congratulations on your promotion" in elegant script. She backed out of my office quietly, sensing something terrible had happened. I opened my email, hoping for some explanation, some message that would make sense of what I had just seen. Nothing. My inbox was full of the usual client correspondence, internal memos, project updates, but nothing about the promotion. Nothing from Richard, nothing from corporate HR. At 11:30, my computer chimed with a new message. Company-wide distribution. The subject line read, "Leadership announcement." My stomach dropped. I opened the email. The message was from Richard Mallory, sent to every employee in the regional office. "I am pleased to announce the promotion of Heather Drake to Senior Director of Regional Sales Operations, effective immediately. Heather has demonstrated exceptional relationship-building skills and strategic vision. Please join me in congratulating her on this well-deserved advancement." I read the words 3 times, each time hoping they would change, hoping I had misunderstood, but they remained the same. Heather Drake, the woman who had been with the company for only 2 years. The woman whose sales numbers were consistently in the middle of the pack. The woman who had never closed a major account on her own. The woman who was now standing in my office. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely close the email. I felt nauseous. The walls of my office seemed to be closing in. I needed air. I needed water. I needed to get away from my desk before I completely fell apart. I walked to the break room on unsteady legs, focusing on each step, trying to hold myself together. The break room was empty except for two junior analysts standing by the coffee machine. Brad and Sophie. They didn't notice me enter. Everyone knows how Heather got that promotion, Brad was saying, his voice low but audible. He was smirking, stirring sugar into his coffee. Sophie laughed, a sharp, knowing sound. Right? I saw them leaving the Marriott downtown together last Tuesday night. I was there for my cousin's rehearsal dinner. They didn't see me, but I saw them. He had his hand on her back, and they were laughing. Richard's wife is going to find out eventually, Brad said. This is so obvious. I mean, Heather's decent at her job, but she's not promotion material. Not compared to Jennifer Thompson. Everyone knows Jennifer should have gotten that position. Yeah, but Jennifer doesn't sleep with the boss, Sophie replied. Guess we know what really matters around here. They both laughed again, and the sound hit me like a physical blow. I turned and walked out before they could see me. I made it back to my office, closed the door, and sat down heavily in my chair. My face was burning, my chest felt tight. I couldn't breathe properly. Everyone knew. The affair was common knowledge in the office. People were laughing about it by the coffee machine. And that meant everyone also knew that I had been passed over. Everyone knew I had been humiliated. Everyone knew that merit didn't matter, that 5 years of exceptional work didn't matter, that results and dedication and sacrifice didn't matter. What mattered was that Heather Drake was sleeping with Richard Mallory, and I was the fool who had believed that doing good work would be enough. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to sit in my office and accept this quietly. I wasn't going to pretend everything was fine. I needed answers. I needed to look Richard Mallory in the eye and demand an explanation. I walked to his office with my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Every step felt deliberate, almost ceremonial. I was crossing a line, and I knew it. In 5 years, I had never confronted Richard about anything. I had always been professional, diplomatic, careful. But careful hadn't protected me. Professional hadn't earned me what I deserved. His door was half open. I didn't knock. I pushed it the rest of the way and walked in. Richard looked up from his computer, surprise flickering across his face. Jennifer, he said, his tone cautious. I didn't hear you knock. You promised me that promotion 2 weeks ago, I said. My voice was steady, which surprised me. Inside, I was shaking, but my words came out clear and firm. You shook my hand. You told me the paperwork was going to corporate. What happened? Richard leaned back in his chair, studying me. The warmth from 2 weeks ago was completely gone. His expression was cold, calculating. Business decisions change, Jennifer. The leadership team decided that Heather brought additional value to the table. Additional value. I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. I've exceeded every target for 3 years straight. I brought in the Morrison account, the Patterson Group, the entire Northwest portfolio. What additional value could Heather possibly bring that I don't? Richard's eyes narrowed. Are you questioning my judgment? I'm questioning why you lied to me. The air in the room shifted. Richard sat forward, his hands folding on his desk. You need to be very careful about the accusations you're making, Jennifer. I'm not making accusations, I said, even though we both knew I was. I'm asking for an explanation, and I think I deserve one. What you deserve, Richard said slowly, his voice dropping to a dangerous quiet, is whatever I decide you deserve. That's how this works. I'm your boss. I make the decisions about who gets promoted and who doesn't, even when those decisions are based on personal relationships instead of performance. The words hung in the air between us. I had said it. I had crossed the line completely. Richard stood up from his chair. He was a tall man, over 6 feet, and he used his height deliberately, walking around his desk to stand closer to me. It was an intimidation tactic, and I felt it working. My pulse quickened. You're making serious accusations without proof, he said, his voice low and controlled. That's a dangerous game, Jennifer. Very dangerous. Everyone in this office knows about you and Heather, I said. It's not exactly a secret. Office gossip isn't evidence, Richard replied. And spreading malicious rumors about colleagues could be considered creating a hostile work environment. Is that really the path you want to go down? I felt my resolve wavering, but I forced myself to stand my ground. I'm going to report this to HR. This is a clear conflict of interest. And it's unethical. Richard laughed. It was a cold, humorless sound. Go ahead. Karen in HR is my college roommate's wife. We golf together every Sunday. You think she's going to take your word over mine? The bottom dropped out of my stomach. Of course. Karen Blackwell. I should have known. The company wasn't big enough for Richard not to have connections everywhere. You can't do this, I said, but even as I spoke, I could hear the desperation creeping into my voice. This isn't legal. This isn't right. Legal? Right. Richard smiled. And it was the most condescending expression I had ever seen. Jennifer, you're being emotional. You're being unprofessional. Heather is more flexible. She understands how things really work in the business world. Maybe you should take notes if you want to advance in your career. The implication was so clear, so disgusting, that I felt physically ill. He was suggesting that if I wanted a promotion, I should do what Heather did. He was reducing years of hard work and dedication to nothing more than a transaction. I turned to leave, needing to get out of his office before I said something I couldn't take back. Oh, Jennifer, Richard called after me. His voice was casual now, almost cheerful. One more thing. I'm restructuring your territories. You'll be losing the Anderson account and the Pacific Northwest region. Heather thinks those would be better managed under her new division. The paperwork will be finalized by the end of the week. I stopped in the doorway, my hand gripping the frame. The Anderson account alone represented 40% of my annual commission. Without it and the Pacific Northwest region, my income would be cut by more than half. My mortgage payment, my student loans, my mother's medical bills that I helped with every month. I wouldn't be able to afford any of it. This wasn't just about denying me a promotion. This was retaliation. Richard was systematically destroying my career and my financial stability because I had dared to challenge him. I walked out without responding. My vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall until I was alone. I spent the weekend in a fog. I barely slept. I lay in bed Saturday night staring at the ceiling, my mind cycling through the same thoughts over and over. How could this have happened? How had I been so blind? What was I supposed to do now? By Sunday evening, I had made a decision. I would document everything. Every promise Richard had made. Every performance review. Every client success. Every piece of evidence that showed I deserved that promotion. I would build a case. I would find a way to fight back. Monday morning, I arrived at the office at 7:15, earlier than usual. I wanted time to organize my thoughts before the official workday began. I sat at my desk with my personal laptop, creating a detailed timeline, dates, conversations, emails, performance metrics. I printed copies of my performance reviews from my personal files, documents I had saved over the years. At 8:30, I walked past the corner office. Heather was already inside. She had moved in over the weekend. There was a new nameplate on the door. Heather Drake, Senior Director of Regional Sales Operations. The sight of it made my stomach turn. I tried to access my client files for the Anderson account and the Pacific Northwest region, wanting to download records before they were transferred. My system access was denied. A red error message flashed on my screen. Insufficient permissions. I tried again. Same message. My key card. I pulled it from my wallet and walked to the executive-level conference rooms on the 4th floor. These were the rooms where major client presentations happened, where strategy meetings took place. I had been using them for years. I held my card up to the reader. A red light blinked. Access denied. My heart started pounding. They were locking me out, systematically cutting off my access to the resources I needed to do my job. I went back to my office and found Laura's desk empty. Her computer was off. Her personal photos, the small plant she kept by her keyboard, the coffee mug with her daughter's picture on it, all gone. "Where's Laura?" I asked Marcus, one of the sales coordinators who sat nearby. He looked uncomfortable. "She got called into HR this morning. About an hour ago." I walked to the HR department, my stomach sinking with each step. Karen Blackwell's assistant, a young woman named Amy, looked up as I approached. "Is Laura here?" I asked. "I'm sorry, I can't discuss personnel matters," Amy said, not meeting my eyes. "I'm her direct supervisor. I have a right to know where my assistant is." "Not anymore," Amy said quietly. "Laura's been reassigned." The words hit me like a slap. I turned and walked away before Amy could see my face. At 10:15, my email chimed. A message from Karen Blackwell. Subject: Required meeting. "Jennifer, please come to my office immediately." I walked to HR feeling like I was walking to an execution. Karen was waiting in her office, a thin folder on her desk in front of her. "Sit down, Jennifer," she said. Her tone was professionally neutral, but there was something cold underneath it. I sat. Karen opened the folder and slid a document across the desk. "This is a formal written warning for insubordination and creating a hostile work environment." I stared at the paper. The words swam in front of my eyes. "What are you talking about?" "Your aggressive confrontation with Richard Mallory on Friday afternoon," Karen said. "He reported that he felt threatened and harassed by your behavior. You made unfounded accusations about his professional judgment and implied improper conduct. That's a serious violation of our workplace conduct policy. He lied to me about a promotion," I said, my voice rising, "as having an affair with Heather Drake. And that's why she got the position instead of me." "Jennifer," Karen said, her tone sharp, "you're making defamatory statements without evidence. We take these matters very seriously. I have a witness statement from Heather herself, stating that you made unfounded and damaging statements about her character." "Of course she did," I said bitterly. "This is ridiculous. You know what's really happening here." Karen's expression hardened. "What I know is that you're making serious accusations without proof. We take workplace harassment very seriously, Jennifer. Any further incidents will result in immediate termination. Do you understand?" I understood perfectly. They were building a case to fire me. Richard had already prepared the ground. Karen was executing his plan. I signed the warning because I had no choice. If I refused, they would use it as further evidence of insubordination. I returned to my office in a daze. My phone extension had been changed. I discovered this when a client called my old number and couldn't reach me. I had to look up my new extension in the system directory. At lunch, I walked to the cafeteria where I usually ate with several colleagues. Our regular table was empty. I saw them sitting at a different table across the room. When I made eye contact with Maria, one of the account managers I had worked with for 3 years, she quickly looked away. They were afraid to be seen with me. I was toxic now. Radioactive. Anyone who associated with me might be targeted next. I ate lunch alone at my desk, staring at my computer screen without really seeing it. At 4:30, my email chimed again. A new message from an address I didn't recognize. anonymous.friend@tempmail.com. I almost deleted it, assuming it was spam. But something made me open it. There was no message, just an attachment. A PDF file. I downloaded it and opened it, my heart pounding. It was a spreadsheet. Security camera logs from the executive parking garage. Dates, times, license plate numbers, Richard's car, arriving at 7 p.m. Minutes later, Heather's car, pulling into the space next to his. Both cars leaving together between 9 and 10 p.m. The pattern repeated over and over. 43 separate dates over the past 6 months. I cross-referenced the dates with my calendar. My hands started shaking as I realized what I was seeing. These weren't random dates. They corresponded with evenings when major contract decisions were made. The Morrison account decision. Richard and Heather were together that night. The Patterson Group contract. Same thing. The Northwest portfolio restructuring. Same pattern. Every major business decision that had benefited Heather's proposals over mine had been preceded by these late-night meetings. At the bottom of the spreadsheet was a single sentence. The cameras see everything. Building security keeps records for 18 months. Access badge logs too. Someone should probably mention this to corporate compliance. Someone inside the company was helping me. Someone who had access to security records. Someone who knew what was happening and wanted it stopped. I stared at the document for a long time, my mind racing. This was evidence. Real evidence. Not just office gossip. Time-stamped, documented, undeniable. But I couldn't take it to Richard. I couldn't take it to Karen. They would bury it, and they would destroy me for having it. I needed to go over their heads. I needed to reach someone they couldn't control. I spent Tuesday night at my apartment, researching Westfield Financial Corporation's organizational structure. The regional office where I worked was part of a much larger national company. Corporate headquarters was in New York. There had to be oversight. There had to be people whose job was to prevent exactly this kind of corruption. I found it buried in the employee handbook on the company intranet, the ethics and compliance hotline, a phone number and an email address that bypassed local management entirely. All reports were reviewed by the internal audit division at corporate headquarters. I read the policy 3 times, making sure I understood the protections. Anonymous reporting was allowed. Retaliation against whistleblowers was explicitly prohibited. The audit division had independent authority to investigate. This was my chance. I spent Wednesday evening building my report. I used my personal laptop, not my work computer. I created a new email address through a free service, something completely untraceable to me. I compiled everything, the security camera logs the anonymous sender had provided, dates and times of major contract decisions, email evidence from my own archives, showing that my proposals had been more competitive than Heather's. Yet hers had been selected. Performance metrics demonstrating my consistent success compared to Heather's average results. The timeline of Richard's promotion promised to me, followed by the sudden reversal. The pattern was clear. Richard Mallory had used his position to award contracts and opportunities to Heather Drake in exchange for a personal relationship. He had denied me a promised promotion to give it to her instead, and when I had confronted him, he had retaliated by stripping my accounts, restricting my access, and building a case to terminate me. I wrote the report carefully, keeping my language professional and factual. I didn't mention that I was the one submitting it. I framed it as a concerned employee who had observed irregularities. I suggested specific evidence they should review: security camera footage, badge access logs, financial records showing who benefited from contract awards. At 11:45 p.m. on Wednesday night, I hit send. The next 2 days were agony. I went to work and kept my head down, trying to act normal while my entire body hummed with anxiety. Had they received my report? Were they taking it seriously? Or had it disappeared into some bureaucratic void? Heather was settling into her new role with visible satisfaction. She brought in her own team, people she had worked with before. Young, ambitious, eager to please. They followed her around like disciples. I watched from a distance, feeling invisible. On Friday morning, I received an email notification that my final 2 major accounts were being transferred to other managers. I was being left with only small clients, the ones nobody else wanted. My commission structure would be decimated. I updated my resume that afternoon. If the audit didn't work, I would need to find another job. But who would hire me with a written warning in my file? Richard would give me a terrible reference. My career was being destroyed in real time. At 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon, my desk phone rang. The number on the caller ID was from New York. Area code 212. My heart stopped. "This is Jennifer Thompson," I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Miss Thompson, this is Patricia Morrison from Westfield Financial Corporation's Internal Audit Division." The woman's voice was professional, confident, authoritative. "We received an anonymous compliance report regarding irregularities in your regional office. We're conducting a preliminary investigation and will be on site Monday morning. I'm calling because your name appears in some of the documentation as a potential witness. Are you willing to speak with us confidentially?" I couldn't speak for a moment. They were coming. The auditors were actually coming. "Miss Thompson." Patricia's voice held a note of concern. "Are you there?" "Yes." I managed. "I'm here." Yes, I'm willing to speak with you." "I need to be direct with you," Patricia said. "If you're concerned about retaliation or job security, we have protocols in place. We take these matters extremely seriously. This is what we do. Your cooperation would be voluntary, but it would also be confidential. Your management would not be informed that you spoke with us unless you choose to disclose that yourself." "When would you need to meet?" I asked. "Monday morning. We'll be arriving at 8:30. Would you be available at 11:15? "Yes," I said immediately. "Good. We'll be in the executive conference room on the 4th floor. Someone will come get you when we're ready." "Miss Thompson, I want you to know that if you have information relevant to this investigation, now is the time to share it. We can't protect you if we don't know what's happening." "I understand," I said. "See you Monday." The line went dead. I sat at my desk, my hand still holding the phone, trying to process what had just happened. The audit division was coming. They had taken the anonymous report seriously. They were investigating. But I was terrified. If Richard found out I was cooperating, he would destroy me before the investigation could be completed. And even if the auditors were well-intentioned, they were walking into a situation where Richard had spent years building alliances and covering his tracks. The weekend felt endless. I barely left my apartment. I kept running through scenarios in my head. What would Patricia Morrison ask me? What evidence did they already have? What would happen when they confronted Richard and Heather? Monday morning came too slowly and too fast at the same time. I got dressed in my most professional suit, a navy blue blazer and skirt that I usually saved for major client presentations. I needed to look composed, credible, strong. I arrived at the office at 7:45. My hands were shaking as I walked through the lobby. At 8:30 exactly, 3 people in business suits entered through the main doors. 2 men and a woman. They didn't look like regular employees. They carried themselves differently, with a quiet authority that made people step aside. The woman was Patricia Morrison. I recognized her somehow. Even though we had never met, she was in her mid-50s, with short gray hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She walked directly to the reception desk and spoke quietly to the receptionist. Within minutes, they were escorted to the executive conference room on the 4th floor. The same conference room my keycard no longer opened. The office atmosphere changed immediately. People noticed. Whispers spread through the cubicles. Who were these people? Why were they here? At 9 o'clock, Richard was called into the conference room. I watched from my office as he walked past. His expression carefully neutral but his jaw tight. At 9:45, Heather was summoned. She looked nervous, which gave me a small, bitter satisfaction. Other staff members were called throughout the morning. Marcus from sales coordination, 2 people from accounting, 3 managers from different departments. Security personnel arrived carrying boxes of documents. Its staff went into both Richard's and Heather's offices, doing something with their computers. At 11 o'clock, Karen Blackwell was called to the conference room. She was inside for over an hour. When she emerged, her face was pale and drawn. At 11:15, Patricia Morrison herself came to my office. "Jennifer Thompson?" she asked, even though she clearly knew who I was. "Yes," I said, standing up. "Would you come with me, please?" I followed her down the hallway, my heart pounding. Other employees watched as we walked past. I could feel their stares. Patricia led me to a smaller office, not the main conference room. It was more private, more intimate. One of the male auditors was there, a man in his 30s with glasses and a serious expression. Patricia introduced him as David Chen, from their forensics team. "Please, sit," Patricia said, gesturing to a chair. I sat. My hands were folded in my lap, pressed together to stop them from shaking. Patricia sat across from me, her posture relaxed but her gaze focused. "Jennifer, I want to start by assuring you that this conversation is confidential. Nothing you tell us will be shared with your local management unless it becomes part of formal proceedings. Do you understand?" "Yes," I said. "I'm going to ask you some direct questions. I need you to be completely honest with me. Can you do that?" I nodded. "How long have you worked for Westfield Financial Corporation?" 5 years. I started as a junior account manager and was promoted to regional sales manager 3 years ago. "And your performance during that time?" "I've exceeded my targets every year. I've brought in major accounts, including Morrison, Patterson Group, and the Northwest portfolio. My performance reviews have been consistently excellent." Patricia glanced at a folder in front of her. "I've seen your performance reviews. They're impressive. Tell me about the senior director position." I took a breath. 2 weeks ago, Richard Mallory told me I was getting the promotion. He said the paperwork was going to corporate. Then last Friday, I found out Heather Drake was getting it instead. How did that make you feel?" "Betrayed, confused, angry." "Did you confront Richard Mallory about this?" "Yes. Friday afternoon." "What happened during that confrontation?" I told her everything. Richard's dismissive attitude, his suggestion that Heather was more flexible, his threat about Karen and HR, his decision to strip my major accounts as retaliation. Patricia listened without interrupting, making occasional notes. When I finished, she asked, "Did you send the anonymous tip to our compliance hotline?" I hesitated, then decided honesty was the only option. "Yes." "Why anonymously?" "Because I was afraid. Richard made it clear that he controls HR here. I didn't think I would be protected if I came forward openly." Patricia nodded slowly. "That was smart. And it was brave. Jennifer, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to understand how serious this is. What we've found in the last 3 hours is worse than we expected." My breath caught. David Chen opened his laptop and turned it to face me. "We pulled 18 months of security footage from your parking garage. Richard Mallory and Heather Drake's vehicles appear together on 43 separate occasions, always in the evening, after normal business hours. Badge access logs show they both entered Richard's office during these times, sometimes staying until midnight." Patricia continued. "We've also reviewed contract award records. Every major contract decision that benefited Heather's division occurred within 24 to 48 hours of these meetings. Financial records show that Richard received performance bonuses tied to these contract values. We're talking about over $2 million in contracts awarded to Heather's teams, despite documentation showing that competing proposals, including yours, were more cost-effective and comprehensive." I felt dizzy. "So it's real. It's not just, I'm not imagining this." "You're not imagining anything," Patricia said firmly. "There's also evidence of expense report fraud. Richard and Heather took multiple trips together, charged to company accounts, listed as client development meetings. We contacted the clients. None of them met with Richard or Heather on those dates." "What about Karen?" I asked. In HR. Patricia's expression hardened. We found emails between Karen and Richard discussing how to document complaints against you. They were building a termination case. We also found 3 previous complaints about Richard's behavior from other female employees over the past 4 years. Karen buried all of them. The room seemed to tilt. I had been days away from being fired. If the auditors hadn't come, I would have lost everything. Jennifer, Patricia said gently, you did the right thing. You probably saved your career and prevented this from happening to someone else. A commotion in the hallway interrupted us, raised voices. I recognized one of them as Richard's. Patricia stood and opened the door slightly. Through the gap, I could see Richard storming toward the conference room, his face red with rage. Heather was behind him, crying. Security guards intercepted them. Patricia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then looked at me. The IT forensics team just recovered deleted files from Richard's computer. Has been erasing evidence for the past hour. But digital forensics can recover almost anything. She paused, reading something on her screen. There are explicit communications between him and Heather discussing the promotion. Richard wrote, "Don't worry about Jennifer. I'll handle her. You'll get the position if you keep me happy." Heather responded with dates and times for hotel meetings. I felt the blood drain from my face. It was real. All of it. The affair, the corruption, the retaliation. It was documented, proven, undeniable. Patricia continued reading. There are also communications with Karen strategizing how to terminate you. They were planning to fire you by the end of this week. They were going to fire me. My voice came out as a whisper. Yes, Patricia said. If we hadn't arrived, you would have been gone by Friday. They had a completely fabricated disciplinary case built against you. I sat back in my chair, my mind reeling. I had been right to be afraid. The threat had been real, immediate, and overwhelming. Richard and Karen and Heather had been working together to destroy me, and if I hadn't found the courage to send that anonymous tip, they would have succeeded. The rest of Monday afternoon passed in a blur of activity that I witnessed from the edges. The office had transformed into something that felt more like a crime scene than a workplace. Employees whispered in clusters. Work had effectively stopped. Everyone was watching the conference room, waiting to see what would happen next. At 2 o'clock, Richard and Heather were escorted out of the building by security guards. I watched from my office window as they walked through the lobby. Richard's personal belongings were being packed into cardboard boxes by HR staff wearing latex gloves, treating everything as potential evidence. Heather's new corner office, the one that should have been mine, was sealed with official tape across the door. Karen Blackwell from HR was escorted out 30 minutes later, her face ashen. At 3:30, a man I didn't recognize arrived. He was in his late 50s, with silver hair and an expensive suit. He moved through the office with the confidence of someone who owned the space. I later learned he was Thomas Grant, the regional vice president from the Dallas office. Thomas called an all-staff meeting in the main conference area. Every employee crowded in, standing along the walls when the chairs filled up. The energy in the room was electric, with tension and curiosity. Thomas stood at the front, his expression somber and serious. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I'm here to address a serious situation," he began. "Effective immediately. Richard Mallory has been terminated for ethics violations, conflicts of interest, and fraud against the company. Heather Drake's promotion has been rescinded, and she has been terminated for her participation in these violations. Karen Blackwell has been terminated for failing to report misconduct and actively covering up violations." A murmur rippled through the crowd. People exchanged glances. Some looked shocked, others looked vindicated, as if they had suspected something all along. Thomas continued, "Westfield Financial Corporation is committed to ethical business practices and maintaining a workplace free from corruption and favoritism. We take these matters with the utmost seriousness. A full review of all contract awards and personnel decisions from the past 2 years will be conducted to ensure fairness and integrity." He paused, letting that sink in. I want to be clear. If you have experienced or witnessed any misconduct, you are encouraged to report it to the Internal Audit Division. We have protections in place for whistleblowers, and retaliation will not be tolerated. After the meeting, Thomas asked to speak with me privately. Patricia Morrison was also present. We met in a small office away from the main floor. Thomas gestured for me to sit, then took a seat across from me. His demeanor was professional but genuinely apologetic. "Miss Thompson," he said, "I want to personally apologize on behalf of Westfield Financial Corporation. You were wronged. Your work was undervalued, your achievements were ignored, and you faced retaliation for trying to expose misconduct. That should never have happened." "Thank you," I said quietly. I didn't know what else to say. "The senior director position is being reopened." Thomas continued, "You're the primary candidate. Your qualifications are exemplary. However, I want to ensure we conduct a fair evaluation process to maintain integrity. We'll be reviewing all candidates formally over the next 2 weeks, but I want you to know that you're the frontrunner." Patricia leaned forward. "Jennifer, I've reviewed your performance records extensively. Your client retention rates, your proposal success rates, before Richard started interfering, your team management skills. You're exceptional at your job. The numbers don't lie." I felt tears prickling at the corners of my eyes, but I blinked them back. "I just wanted a fair chance," I said. "That's all I ever wanted, to be evaluated on my work, not on anything else." "You deserve more than a fair chance," Thomas said. "You deserve recognition for what you've accomplished and for the courage it took to come forward." Then his expression grew more serious. "But I need to be transparent with you about something. Corporate legal is concerned. You sent the anonymous tip, which was absolutely the right thing to do. However, Richard's lawyers are already claiming this was a conspiracy, that you fabricated evidence to eliminate competition. It's nonsense, but they're going to fight. Are you prepared for this to potentially get messy?" My stomach dropped. I thought this was over. I thought justice had been served. But of course it wasn't that simple. Richard had resources. He would fight back. Patricia intervened quickly. "The evidence speaks for itself. Security footage can't be fabricated. Badge logs are system-generated. Financial records don't lie. Jennifer's tip led us to investigate, but she didn't create the corruption. She exposed it. Any attempt by Richard's legal team to paint this as a conspiracy will fail." "I just want this to be over," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I understand," Patricia said gently. "And it will be. But there's one more thing." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, glancing at the screen. A new email from an address I didn't recognize, but the name made my heart skip. Diane Porter. "Excuse me," I said, opening the email with trembling hands. The message read, "Jennifer, I heard what happened. I need to tell you something. Richard did the same thing to me 2 years ago. He promised me a promotion, pressured me for a relationship, and when I refused, he destroyed my career. I left because I thought I had no choice. But I kept documentation. I have emails, texts, everything. Has done this before. You're not his first victim, but maybe you can be the last. I want to help. Please call me." There was a phone number at the bottom. I looked up at Patricia and Thomas, my hands shaking. "Richard's done this before." "What do you mean?" Thomas asked. I turned my phone to show them the email. Patricia read it quickly, her expression hardening with each line. "Diane Porter," Patricia said slowly. "She was a regional manager here 2 years ago. Left suddenly. We should have investigated why." She looked at Thomas. "If there's a pattern of behavior, this changes everything. Richard doesn't just face termination. He faces potential legal charges. We need to contact Diane immediately." Thomas nodded, already pulling out his phone. "It'll get corporate legal involved. If there are multiple victims, We need to know. I sat back in my chair, processing this new information. Diane Porter, a woman I had never met, someone who had left the company before I even knew Richard's name. She had experienced the same thing I had, the same promises, the same pressure, the same retaliation. How many others had there been? How many women had left quietly, believing they had no other choice, thinking they were alone? Suddenly, this wasn't just about my promotion anymore. This wasn't just about getting justice for myself. This was about breaking a cycle that had been going on for years. This was about making sure no woman who came after me would have to face what Diane and I had faced. This was about changing the system that had allowed Richard to operate with impunity for so long. Patricia was already dialing Diane's number, her expression focused and determined. "Miss Porter? This is Patricia Morrison from Westfield Financial Corporation's Internal Audit Division. I'm calling regarding Richard Mallory." I watched as Patricia listened, making notes. After a few minutes, she said, "We'd like to bring you in for a formal interview. Your testimony could be crucial. Would you be willing to cooperate with our investigation?" Another pause. Then Patricia smiled slightly. "Thank you. Well, be in touch to schedule a time." She hung up and looked at me. "Diane's coming in Wednesday. She's been waiting 2 years for someone to take this seriously. How many others do you think there are?" I asked. "I don't know," Patricia said honestly. "But we're going to find out." 3 days passed in a strange limbo. I came to work each day, but the office felt different. Richard's office was empty, his belongings gone. Heather's corner office remained sealed. Karen's desk in HR was cleared out. People treated me differently now. Some with respect, some with wariness, as if I were somehow dangerous. I had taken down 3 members of senior leadership. That kind of power made people nervous. On Wednesday, Diane Porter arrived. I didn't meet with her directly, but I saw her in the lobby, a woman in her mid-40s with kind eyes and an air of determination. She spent 4 hours with the audit team. Thursday morning, Patricia called me. 2 more women have come forward, one from the Atlanta office, one from Seattle. Both have similar stories about Richard from earlier in his career. We're building a comprehensive case. Friday afternoon, Thomas Grant called another all-staff meeting. The office buzzed with speculation. What now? Thomas stood at the front of the conference room with Patricia beside him. "I want to update you on the investigation. Richard Mallory is facing potential civil suits from multiple former employees who have come forward with evidence of harassment and retaliation. Westfield Financial Corporation is cooperating fully with these proceedings." He paused, his expression serious. "The company has reached settlements with the affected parties and is implementing new harassment reporting protocols across all regional offices. We're committed to ensuring this never happens again." Then he smiled slightly, the first warmth I had seen from him. "On a more positive note, I'm pleased to announce that Jennifer Thompson has been officially promoted to Senior Director of Regional Sales Operations. The evaluation process has been completed, and the decision was unanimous." "Jennifer, would you stand up, please?" My heart nearly stopped. I stood on shaky legs, feeling every eye in the room turn toward me. The room erupted in applause. Real applause, not the polite kind you give because you're supposed to. Several people were smiling genuinely. Laura, my former assistant who had been reassigned, was clapping with tears in her eyes. Thomas continued, "Jennifer will be taking over leadership effective Monday. I encourage all of you to give her your full support. She's earned this position through years of excellent work and through the courage she demonstrated in standing up for what's right." After the meeting, people approached me to offer congratulations. Some were colleagues I had worked with for years. Others were people I barely knew, but who had witnessed what happened and respected what I had done. Marcus from Sales Coordination shook my hand. "You deserved this 3 months ago. I'm glad it finally happened." Sophie, one of the junior analysts I had overheard gossiping in the break room, approached hesitantly. "I'm sorry," she said. For what I said. I should have. I don't know. I should have said something. It's okay, I told her, and I meant it. Speaking up was terrifying. I understood why people stayed silent. Thomas asked to speak with me privately again. We met in his temporary office, a space he had been using while sorting out the regional chaos. "The corner office is yours," he said. "Well, have your things moved over the weekend. Your name will be on the door Monday morning." "Thank you," I said. "But I have conditions." Thomas raised an eyebrow. "Conditions?" "I want to be involved in revising the company's ethics policies. I want to help establish better reporting systems so that no one else has to go through what I went through. And I want a mentorship program for junior female employees, something formal and protected." Thomas smiled. "Done. All of it. Jennifer, you're not just getting a promotion. You're getting a voice at the table. Use it." The following Monday, I walked into my new corner office. It was strange, standing in the space that had caused so much pain. The furniture was the same, the view was the same, but everything felt different. Laura knocked on my doorframe. "Welcome to your office, boss." "Come in," I said, smiling. "And Laura, I want you back on my team. I'm promoting you to junior analyst." Her face lit up. "Really? Really? You stood by me when things got difficult. That matters." Over the next few weeks, I implemented changes. I established an open-door policy, making it clear that anyone on my team could come to me with concerns. I created transparent promotion criteria, posted publicly so everyone knew exactly what was required to advance. I worked with HR to redesign the complaint process, adding protections for people who reported misconduct. One afternoon, I met Diane Porter for coffee at a small shop downtown. She had settled her case with the company and seemed lighter somehow, as if a burden had been lifted. "You did what I was too afraid to do," she told me. "You stood up." I was terrified. I admitted. There were moments when I thought I was going to lose everything. "But you didn't back down," Diane said. "That takes a special kind of strength. You gave me my voice back. Thank you." "I'm sorry you had to go through what you did," I said. "I wish someone had listened to you 2 years ago." "Maybe they would have if I had been as brave as you," Diane said. "But I wasn't ready then." "You were ready. And because you were, things are changing." I learned through unofficial channels that Heather was struggling to find employment. Word had spread through the industry. The financial sector is smaller than people think. And reputation matters. Heather's reputation was destroyed, not because of the affair, but because of the fraud, the corruption, the willingness to advance through manipulation rather than merit. I felt no satisfaction in her downfall, only sadness that she had made choices that led her to this point. She could have been successful on her own merits if she had tried. Instead, she had taken a shortcut that destroyed her career. Richard's legal battles were ongoing. The company's lawyers were confident. The evidence was overwhelming, and with multiple women coming forward, the pattern of behavior was undeniable. 6 weeks after the auditors had first arrived, I sat in my corner office on a Friday evening. My team had just finished celebrating a major client win, the same Morrison account that I had closed over a year ago. They had renewed, and they had specifically asked to continue working with me. I looked out over the city, watching the sun set behind the downtown skyline, and thought about the woman I had been 3 months ago. That woman had believed that hard work and excellence were enough. That woman had been naive about how power worked, about how corruption could flourish when good people stayed silent. I was different now, stronger, wiser, more aware of my own power and my responsibility to use it well. My phone rang. "My mother," I answered. "Hi, sweetheart," she said. "How was your day?" "Good," I said. And for the first time in months, I meant it completely. "Really good. I'm proud of you," my mother said. "You know that, right?" I'm so proud of who you've become." "Thanks, Mom," I said, feeling tears prick at my eyes. After we hung up, I stood at my window for a few more minutes, letting myself feel the full weight of what had happened. The fight had been brutal. There had been moments when I thought I wouldn't survive it, but I had. I had stood up, spoken the truth, and refused to back down. And I had won. Not just the promotion, though that mattered. I had won something more important. The knowledge that I could face injustice and not crumble, that I could stand up for myself and for others, that I had the courage to fight for what was right, even when the cost was terrifying. The corner office, the title, the salary bump that came with it, those things were nice, but they weren't what I was most proud of. I was proud that I hadn't stayed silent when silence would have been easier. I was proud that I fought back when fighting felt impossible, and I was proud that other women wouldn't have to go through what Diane and I did. Because I had the courage to say, "This is wrong, and I will not accept it." That was the real victory. Not the promotion. The knowledge that I stood up, fought back, and won by being exactly who I have always been, someone who refuses to let injustice prevail. It's been 4 months now since Patricia Morrison and her audit team walked through the doors of our regional office. 4 months since everything changed. The senior director position feels less like a prize now and more like a responsibility. Every day, I'm aware that young women on my team are watching how I lead. Learning from my example, that's a weight I take seriously. I've kept my promises to Thomas Grant. I helped revise the ethics reporting system, making it easier for employees to come forward with concerns and harder for managers to bury complaints. I established the mentorship program, pairing junior female employees with senior leaders across the company. The program has already expanded to 3 other regional offices. But the most meaningful change has been cultural. People talk more openly now about problems they see. There's less fear, more trust. It's not perfect. Workplace culture takes time to shift, but we're moving in the right direction. Last week, a young woman named Sarah from the marketing department asked to speak with me privately. She was nervous, fidgeting with her hands as she sat across from my desk. "I heard what happened with you and Richard Mallory," she said. I wanted to ask, "How did you know when to speak up? How did you find the courage?" I thought about her question carefully before answering. I didn't feel courageous. I told her honestly, I felt terrified, but I realized that staying silent was going to cost me everything anyway. Richard was already destroying my career. I had nothing left to lose by fighting back. "What if I do have something to lose?" Sarah asked. "Then you have to decide what you're willing to risk," I said. But here's what I learned. Injustice doesn't stop on its own. It continues until someone stands up and says no. Sometimes, that someone has to be you. Sarah nodded slowly. My manager has been taking credit for my work. It's been happening for months. I've been documenting everything, but I didn't know what to do with it. "File a formal complaint," I said immediately. "Through the ethics system. It will be investigated, and you'll be protected from retaliation. I'll personally make sure of that." "You would do that?" Sarah looked surprised. "That's why I fought so hard to change the system," I said, "so that women like you wouldn't have to fight alone." Sarah filed her complaint the next day. An investigation was launched. Her manager was found to have violated company policies and was formally disciplined. Sarah got credit for her work and a promotion to senior marketing coordinator. That's what victory looks like now. Not my corner office or my title, but the knowledge that the system is working, that justice is possible, that speaking up doesn't automatically mean career suicide. Diane Porter calls me occasionally. We've become friends, bonded by our shared experience. She's working at a different company now, thriving in a role where her talents are recognized. She tells me she's happier than she's been in years. "You gave me hope," she told me during our last call. "Not just for myself, but for my daughter. She's 25 now, just starting her career." I used to worry about what she might face in the corporate world. But then I think about what you did, how you changed things, and I feel like maybe her generation will have it a little bit easier. That thought sustains me on difficult days. The idea that I didn't just fight for myself. I fought for Sarah, for Diane's daughter, for every woman who will walk through these office doors in the years to come. Richard's legal troubles are far from over. He faces multiple lawsuits, and his reputation in the industry is destroyed. I feel no pleasure in his downfall, only relief that he can't hurt anyone else. Heather reached out to me 2 months ago. An email, short and formal. She apologized. She said she had made terrible choices, that she regretted hurting me, that she was trying to rebuild her life and her integrity. I responded briefly, acknowledging her apology but not offering forgiveness. That might come eventually, but it's not something I owe her. Some wounds take time to heal. The most unexpected gift from this entire experience has been the relationships I've built. Patricia Morrison and I stay in touch. She's become a mentor, someone I call when I need advice about navigating corporate politics or handling difficult situations. She tells me I have a future in corporate leadership if I want it. Thomas Grant was promoted to Executive Vice President. He's based in New York now, but he makes a point of visiting our regional office quarterly. He always stops by my office to check in, to see how things are going, to remind me that the company values what I did. My team respects me in a way that feels earned rather than given. They know I fought for my position. They know I'm willing to fight for them too. On the 4-month anniversary of the audit, I stood in my corner office early in the morning before anyone else arrived. The sun was just rising, casting golden light across the city. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who believed that keeping her head down and working hard would be enough. She wasn't wrong to believe in merit, but she was naive to think that merit alone would protect her in a corrupt system. I've learned that sometimes you have to fight for the world you want to live in. You have to speak up even when your voice shakes. You have to stand up even when you're terrified of falling. You have to believe that you're worth fighting for, even when the people around you suggest otherwise. The corner office, the senior director title, the increased salary that lets me pay off my student loans and help my mother with her medical bills. These things matter. They're tangible proof that I won. But the real victory is internal. It's the knowledge that I didn't compromise my integrity. I didn't stay silent in the face of corruption. I didn't let fear control my choices. I stood up, I fought back, and I won by refusing to be anyone other than exactly who I am, a woman who believes in fairness, in merit, in justice, and in the courage to fight for those things even when the cost is high. That's what I want other women to learn from my story. Not that fighting is easy. It's not. It's terrifying and exhausting, and sometimes it feels impossible. But it's worth it. You're worth it. Your integrity is worth it. And the women who come after you are worth it. So if you're facing injustice in your workplace or anywhere else in your life, document everything. Trust your instincts. Find allies. Use the systems available to you. And if those systems fail, find a way around them. Don't stay silent. Silence protects the people who hurt you, not you. Speaking up is an act of courage, but it's also an act of self-preservation and an investment in the future. I'm not saying everyone should do what I did. Every situation is different. Every person has to weigh their own risks and make their own choices. But I am saying this. You deserve to be treated fairly. You deserve to be evaluated on your merit. You deserve to work in an environment free from corruption and harassment. And if you're not getting those things, you have more power than you think you do. Use it. I did. And it changed everything. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a situation where you had to choose between staying silent or speaking up? What did you do? How did it turn out? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else find the courage they need. If this story resonated with you, Please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more stories about finding strength in difficult situations. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, someone who's struggling with workplace injustice or facing difficult choices about speaking up, please share this video with them. Sometimes knowing we're not alone makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you're stronger than you think, braver than you feel, and worthy of fighting for. Take care of yourselves, stand up for what's right, and never forget your own value. You matter, your voice matters. And your courage can change everything.